And then later on, this technology, which I've been working with and inventing around, later, little did I know, became the publicly recognized technology of spatial audio, is what they call it for Mac or Apple. And if you look at Windows goes by the term Sonic for headphones. And you also have Dolby Atmos. So there's different companies and different organizations out there that use different terms for this technology. And because some of them are like copyright and patented as their exclusive technology, although no one really owns this technology because it's just been there. It's just something that had to really be discovered and found ways to be able to harness this technology and make use of it in applications of hardware and software. So different companies patent it by different names and terminologies. Like, because of that reason, I can't just call it spatial audio because it's not spatial audio. That's just a name that the technology has been categorized as and probably patented by Apple. But Windows has Sonic for headphones and Sonic Surround, and you have Dolby, which is going by the name Atmos. So for me, what I guess I can say that's not going to probably raise any copyright claims or patent claims, because I've been working with this technology which was not previously named, and so that's why I'm going by the term 8-dimensional audio. So I should be kind of correcting as I'm speaking, because if I keep talking about spatial audio, someone from Apple might say, you know what, we own that. That's ours. You can't claim that. So I'm not claiming their patented version of this technology. But I guess I can say what I generally work and have previously, as I've just explained to you, obtained an understanding and discovery of this technology. I will term it and classify it as 8-dimensional audio production, or 8-dimensional audio, or an upgrade from 3D audio. So with that being said, here's a proper diagram on the screen, as you can see. I tried drawing it out, but I can draw better on a piece of paper than on a trackpad for my laptop. So what I wanted to say is that, as you see, I got other different slides here. And as I was touching on this subject here, I just remembered that, back in early 2020, when I was trying to set up this mixer, as I just explained to you, in this unconventional way, I was trying to draw it out because I've always been that kind of person to not really understand things on like a literal perspective or theory, or like a textbook. I'll just use that term, textbook education. I was never the student to understand things in a textbook education. I was more like hands-on learning. If I did mathematics, I would have to visually see that math to understand it and to be able to calculate it in unique ways. So I'm more of a visual, hands-on learner rather than someone who learns just by theory or text. So with that being said, I try to learn and solve issues, troubleshoot them the way I know how, and that has worked for me. So with this hands-on, I tried to visually draw it out and to say, can I visualize spatial audio? Can I visualize, there's that term again, spatial audio. Can I visualize 8-dimensional audio? Or can I visualize this technology and how it's migrated from mono to stereo to surround sound to now 8-dimensional audio? So this new technology that's been there now, recently discovered, can I visualize it and find ways that I can implement it and harness it and use it? So with that, here's my first drawing here, and this is how I have visualized spatial audio. Not necessarily this is how it looks, but this is how I can visualize it, which makes sense. So if you look at on the right, you see mono signal. Mono signal, in that round little circle inside the square, is the input source, if you want to call it that. So it's an input that has a singular sound source, and that's what the blue line is. It's a one signal. It's a mono signal. And then you got stereo, where it sends the audio wave, and that's why it's all rippled like that. And this stereo signal sends it to the right channel and to the left channel, which is a right mono and a left mono. So you got two mono signals on the left and the right, which creates stereo left and right. So that's how it kind of didn't change in technology, it just improved. So that's the way I could understand how, you got AM radio, FM radio, and the different waveforms of how you can visualize mono and stereo. And then spatial audio is kind of similar. You got your input source of audio coming out of these, the green box, I didn't really describe that. The green box is where that sound is coming to. And that could be a mixer, that can be a PA speaker or wherever. It's just basically where the audio is going towards. So if you look at all of these round circles in this big circle of sound, you got your dimension, and that's why I call it 8-dimensional audio production, because you have your dimension where you did not have it with stereo. And that's why with stereo, when you put on headphones and you're listening to the stereo track, you know that the sound is synthetic. You know that it's artificial. You know that it's right up in your ear, and this stereo signal is not something you can identify in a depth of field or an elevation or a dimension. So with spatial audio, you can identify that, or surround sound, like if you want to call it. That was the early stages of not spatial, sorry, 8-dimensional audio. That was the early stages of this dimensional audio, was surround sound, because with surround sound, you can have a dimension to move that sound around. So that was the foundations of dimensional audio. And you got your output source or your mixer or whatever. So you got your inputs, all these round circles, as you see with my mouse here. And with that, each of them are sending the audio wave to that one input from either an elevation with a distance, and each of these distances are different and they're recognizable. So this is how you can be that person sitting in the middle of the room. Let's say you're the person now, that green box, the one who's receiving the sound, not the PA speaker. And you're able to recognize that this circle is over here, or this input is over here, this input is over there, and these ones are over there. And you got a few backup inputs. So if you're wearing headphones, and let's say now it's not just your ears, it's the headphones. Because if you're in a room environment, you're going to be hearing it like this. And if you're wearing headphones, you're also going to be hearing it like this. So when you wear headphones, you'll be able to identify with your headphones on or your earbuds that you got three things behind you with a certain depth of elevation and distance, and a few things in front of you. Now you couldn't do that with stereo. Stereo is going to be, as you can see here, the same distance to the right ear, the same distance to the left ear, and there's no elevation or depth or any of that. So that's the difference here. Now, if I go into the next slide, you're going to see this is what I was starting to think. Like, okay, once I could now visualize and have like a visual understanding of sound, because sound is invisible, right? It's frequencies. So I had to kind of visualize that invisible frequency and to understand it a bit better. And now that I've visualized it, I'm saying, okay, now let me take that visual understanding and let me draw out a mixer. So I drew out a square box of a mixer. And basically what I'm explaining to you here is the history of back beginning of 2020, when I was discovering this surround sound, and when I discovered spatial audio, dimensional audio through this surround sound setup. And when I discovered it, I was now trying to figure out how to harness it and implement it. So that's was the early stages. Like I said, this was all before that it was publicly recognized recently. Like if you go to apple.ca or apple.com, you're going to find they're promoting new products and new software support for those products that say that next generation audio, 3D spatial audio. And It's a new hype, a new excitement of a new technology that is being promoted, but it's been around for long before they just went out publicly with it through marketing it in products and services, and software support. So this is what I'm giving you, kind of like a brief history introduction of my old drawings of when I came across the technology before it was even publicly recognized. In my kind of unplanned trial and error of setting up a stage box and some a hybrid mixer in a live stage setting. So here's the second drawing. Like I said, the first one here is visualizing how it looks like. And the second one is, okay, now let me take that visualization and let me put it into this hybrid mixer, which is like a digital analog mixer. And then I was having troubles because when I was trying to implement this sound into the mixer, it would sound distorted every single time. And I couldn't figure out why I was having issues with this mixer, which is digital and semi-digital analog. And every time I would try to send like a spatial audio, it says here, because mixers are individual channels, individual mono channels, or individual, yeah, they are, like basically every channel on a mixer are mono signals. They're individual, but you can set them up as stereo, where you can have, like here on the right, you can have mono, mono, and then create a stereo out of it. As you see here, here's a stereo drawing. So you can create stereo and have stereo outputs with a digital mixer. But technically, each individual channel on that mixer is mono signal. So because it's mono signal, how can I get a dimensional audio signal, which is like next generation 3D audio? How do I get something that is a single channel, yet a single channel comprised of multiple channels, into a single channel that is only recognizing it as a single channel? So what it did up here is, you see, here is the whole bunch of different input sources. So like surround sound audio, or surround sound, or dimensional audio coming into a mono signal. And then what it did is it converted it back into a single mono signal. So you couldn't be able to identify the distance and the elevation and all these different inputs. You can't send multiple inputs into a single input and then have that single input recognize that they're separate inputs. The analog digital mixers, they don't have the understanding of that. So because of that reason, that's why I can see why they stopped selling 7.1, 5.1 surround sound systems, and focused on, okay, well, we're having limitations with hardware. Hardware is not really able to recognize it, so we have to focus on software, which is able to recognize an individual track with characteristics of multiple channels. So it took software to be able to recognize that technology of dimensional audio. So this is why these mixers are going to be kind of outdated and irrelevant in the next generation of audio, because even though they're new digital mixers, these digital mixers have analog restrictions. So that's what I wanted to share in the second slide here, is that, okay, I went through this and I tried to set it up. I said, okay, every time I try to send multiple dimensional audio signal into the mixer, it would just distort it and revert it back to some kind of really strange kind of sound. And it wouldn't sound the way it's supposed to if I was listening through like a computer software like Ableton. So with that, I go to the next slide here and I say, okay, let me draw out the history of it. You got stereo, you got quadraphonic, and quadraphonic was the next one after stereo. Basically, that's 4 channels of stereo. You got your main front right and your front left, and you got your rear right and your rear left, and it's all the same. So it's just the same repeated sound in the four corners of the room. So there's no elevation here, there's no dimension, there's no depth or distance or anything like that. It's just a duplicated signal times 4. So you're just filling out that sound, that same sound around in the room, but there's no dimensional characteristics with quadraphonic. So then you go to 5.1 surround sound, and then 7.1, which was a little bit different. And even though it was originally just an upgrade of the 4, as you see here, it's for quadraphonic with an additional speaker. With that technology of upgrade of 5.1 and 7.1, this is where I came across discovering setting everything up individually. Because if you look at it here, let me skip ahead a little bit quickly here. This is my drawing of that same setup of 5.1 or 6.1 or 7.1. And if you go with the conventional route, and this is why I said sound engineers, they were just amazed when they seen this, because this is how normally they would have it set up. On the left here, you got the first two, and this is the conventional way, the first one and the second one. So I had to visualize the conventional way that they're taught in university and school. And they get paid $150 an hour to do this. So you either pair the two fronts, the two mids, and the two rears. So you got 3 sets of pairs, and then you got your separate subwoofer for your bass, your low frequencies. Or you can do the quadraphonic traditional route, like because if everything came from stereo, mono to stereo to quadraphonic, and then 5.1, so you can continue that same format and have everything just duplicated just to fill out the sound of the room. Or you can pair them. But what I did is, because I didn't know how to set up the mixer properly, the conventional route, and I went through the unconventional route, I did one at a time, because like I said, I couldn't get this input to produce output. So once I figured it out, let me do the same for the next one, and the same for the next one. So that's what I did. I did it here, 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 here, here. So I had 7 individual outputs. But because they were individual, I had to adjust them individually. But as I was adjusting them individually, rather than grouping them or having it like all chain linked, like number 2 here, because I was adjusting them individually, I noticed the sound was moving around the room in a unique way. And then that's where the discovery was of dimensional audio. So it was not really planned. It just kind of came out of just me doing this, of setting everything up individually, just trying to figure out how to get the mixer working. So that's basically that part here. Now, if I go to the third slide quickly, no, that's I already went through this one, the fourth one. So now I'm thinking, okay, I discovered this dimensional audio, this 8-dimensional audio. Now, how can I invent it into something that's going to work and be able to produce it in a room, in an environment? And this was long before I even knew, or probably even Dolby Atmos was even available publicly. So when I looked at this was like when I just discovered it, right? And I said, okay, now how can I take this technology, harness it, and be able to use it in a practical application? So I had to map it out, and I said, okay, here's the map, and I did like a roadmap here of Windows, because that's the system I had at the time to be able to do it. This was long before even Apple even had any kind of system that was even mentioning spatial audio, or software support, or even hardware, or even new products that were designed for spatial audio. So I started off with Windows. This is where it was. And I was still using like a really old iMac, i7 iMac at the time, and I had a Windows desktop, which was pretty powerful. So I was mapping it out here, and I'm then, man, this is so complex, because you need your mixer here. You got your source of your instruments, okay, your sound source coming in. So let's map out the sound source, and then you got your mixer, and then the mixer goes USB direct to the PC, and as the mixer is converting this analog, this hybrid of semi-analog digital signal into fully digital signal for the PC, to then use Ableton to adjust and create and simulate this dimensional signal of sound. Then it then pushes it, like I said, through Ableton, and then out of Ableton back into the mixer, because the mixer is the one that's connecting to the audio interface, and then the audio interface is connecting for the recording, for like live streaming or like post recording, and it's also connecting to the speakers for the room. But the problem is, like I said, when I went back to the mixer, it did this nonsense of converting it back to mono. So I'm mapping it out with Windows. I said, this is not working. Like I'm getting this far where it goes into here, into here, into here, into here. But as soon as I have to come back out of the PC into the mixer, it distorts it and it goes right back to traditional stereo or mono signal. So how can I get it to the speakers? How can I get it to the interface of YouTube or live streaming? Because I'm having a roadblock here. And as you see in the purple here, distorted audio. And that's what that purple line is. And I'm like, oh man, how do I solve this distortion of audio that is removing? And this was all before the technology was even supported or even recognized. So that's why there is that purple dotted line here, because there was no research, there was no information anywhere online available of this technology. I even called some very high-end, I've called about 10 sound engineers in the Lower Fraser Valley here in British Columbia. And I called them, and I called multiple locations of Lawn and McQuaid and spoke with different specialists and asked them, and they said, no, it's not possible. That was all the answers they kept giving me, is it's not possible to do this. I've never heard of it being done before, and it's just not possible. And they're speaking from an experienced understanding of sound. But I didn't give up just because they said it's not possible, because how can the scripture be telling me that through Christ all things are possible? So that word, it's not possible, was not possible for me. So because of that, I said, okay, well, I'm going to figure it out. If I'm not going to get any help from all these top people that are experienced and they're getting way bigger paychecks than I do, fine. I'll pursue it on my own, and I'll figure it out. I'll crack the code, so to speak. So I looked at it and I said, okay, Windows, look at this. And then I tried doing the same kind of mapping out on a Mac. And I said, okay, well, for some odd reason, Mac doesn't really have that distortion of audio. And once I discovered, and this was even before they even promoted spatial audio support, if I went into the USB or the sound input coming in, as you can see, look at Windows compared to Mac. Here's Windows. It was just insane. And if I go to Mac, I see here, okay, I got my input source coming in, USB direct to the PC, to the Mac or the PC, whatever you want to call it. And then it comes out through Ableton. And then as it comes out through Ableton, Ableton's able to push it back in to the PC as an output. So you're able to, like, virtually through Core Audio, you can use their Core Audio driver to be able to use the same device and use, you can have a different input than you can have an output. So your input and output can be assigned differently, rather than where Windows was restricted. And if I went to Ableton's website, Ableton said 100% it's not possible on Windows. But with Mac, it was not really mentioned, but it was possible. So that was a beautiful thing, that the audio drivers that Windows had available at the time, you had your input and your output had to be the same device, and whatever you assigned as your input would be assigned as the output device. But with Mac, you had the virtual capabilities of assigning a different input and a different output. So this allowed me to kind of split the signal up through virtual capabilities to then have Ableton receive the sound and then push it back out to YouTube separately. And then also push it out to another device of the mixer to the speakers. So I figured out the solution through Mac and through Apple. And I was so excited. And I said, wow, I've achieved it. I was able to record for the first time dimensional audio, 8-dimensional audio. And it was a very exciting moment. But what happened after that is I said, okay, now I'm able to record it, but how can I get it to work in a live environment now that I've understood how to record it? So I went to look at this here, and this is a drawing of what you would see when I first started to try and figure out how, in these black dots here are the PA speakers. So I said, okay, let me take this 8-dimensional signal and push it out through the PA speakers. And if I do it in the conventional way, this is what would happen. I would get all the individual tracks or signals come out, and it would be so compact and so compressed that all the frequencies, like here, look, let's say that the blue circle, the blue line and circle is the bass guitar, and that's the low end frequencies. And you got the pink circle inside of this blue one, which is the keyboard piano, for example. And you got your vocalists. You got all these different input signals, and that's what this different rainbow color of circles are. All these different inputs of instruments and vocalists. And they're all being jam-packed together, and they're being pushed out at the same time together through an individual output. And the problem with that is the sound is now having so much pressure because of it's pushing out the entire spectrum of the frequency from the small hertz to the high hertz. And with that, the sound is getting distorted, or it's getting to become noise rather than being able to produce clarity. So when I tried to go to the next stage of taking 8-dimensional sound and push it out into a live environment of a room, I noticed this new hurdle, this new issue. And this issue, like I said, of pushing it out, it was coming out like noise. And although I was able to position everything in that space, it was almost like it's the same sound, just in different parts of the room. And that's not much different than stereo or quadraphonic. If I wanted to take this technology of this dimensional sound signal, and I wanted to create it into not like a quadraphonic or stereo application, but I wanted to do it as a surround. So how can I take 8-dimensional audio and make it become surround? So I was working on it, and I was working on it, and then I was going through the next things, and then I said, okay, well, this is how I have to draw out, and this is how it would work with a 6.1, 7.1, or 5.1 setup. And if I want to make it surround, what can I do? So I'm going through this here, and I'm trying to map it out again. I'm going through the next stage. Let me try and map it out. So maybe I need 2 PCs. I need one PC here to do just specifically for the recording, and then a separate PC here that will push out the signal differently for the PA speakers, because I need to structure that technology of dimensional sound different for the PA speakers, because it needs a different kind of format if I'm going to do it for recording. I can't push out the recorded format into the PA speaker format. So they have a different format of how sound is being pushed out, because recording is designed for pushing out that dimensional signal into left and right for your headphones, which is only 2-channel. But if I'm going to be pushing out that dimensional sound through 5.1 or 7.1, if I take the structure of a 2-channel and bring it to a 7.1, you're going to see what happened was I created like a quadraphonic type of setup, and that's not what I wanted, because I didn't want the same sound just in different positions of the room, because then you can't identify the distance of individual inputs, the elevation, or you can't identify the clarity of where that sound is. So I wanted clear sound. I didn't want noise. I want it to be sounding high quality and clear, and every input, every instrument, every vocal could be heard clearly. And that's what I was trying to do, is to clarify that sound. And I had to eliminate that noise of having everything compressed and pushed out. It's almost like a high pressure hose. It's almost like the hose that you see the fire hydrant of firefighters using. You got that high pressure water hose, and that's basically what the sound was producing with that technology if I was going through the quadraphonic or stereo setup. So I needed it to be two-channel, 8-dimensional audio for the recording, but I needed it to be 6-channel for the PA speakers. So how do I do that? And I was just cracking my brain trying to figure out how I can do it. And eventually I came across the idea, and I said, well, let me just have everything on an individual channel. And if I do that, I can send everything individually through each output individually. And as I'm sending each, let's say the purple one, for example, here, I'm sending the purple one to this PA speaker, and it's very loud, as you can see. That's why it's a long line. And then the mid-right, it's kind of quiet. Let's say the one where my mouse is right now, let's say that's 45% volume of that one, channel 1. And this one here is 15% volume. Well, it's going to have a small distance range of sound pressure because it's a lower volume than up here. And if all of these volumes are structured and the sound ends up being placed here, and I do that for each individual input on each individual output, I'm able to create that positional sound. And that's where the discovery came from, of dimensional audio in the live environment and in recordings. So with that being said, and that's basically what happened as a result of doing it this way rather than going the conventional route. So this was the history of, like, back in 2020 when I was working with trying to set up the mixer initially, and then eventually discovering this technology of dimensional audio, and then trying to find ways to implement it for live stage applications in projected audio, and also for recording, for live streaming and post-production. So that's the history of it back in early 2020. And later on, little did I know, it was when surround sound was kind of quiet there for a bit in the public market, that it was later going to be marketed by big tech companies as either sonic audio or spatial audio or Dolby Atmos and things like that. And they might have future product ideas and plans on reasons why they wanted to market out in the way that they did with this technology that I'm sure I wasn't the first person who's discovered it. It's kind of a matter of time before people figured it out. Like I came across it accidentally. People probably have been really focused on studying behind the scenes with Apple and these big tech companies to harness this technology. And I can see that mostly they want to use this technology because it's beneficial. I can understand it because I understand how it works, that it's beneficial for their ideas of their planning for virtual reality and mixed reality and this whole new metaverse of digital space as we enter the digital age of things, as they say. If you can position the audio, it would support filmmakers that are filming virtual video, VR, of VR 360, 3D, or VR 180. Yeah, this spatial audio or dimensional audio is going to be more relevant to virtual reality content. But that wasn't my focus, and that wasn't my plan when I discovered it and wanted to implement it. The purpose on why I wanted to harness this technology was not to utilize it for creating like a virtual reality, but to make sound more clear and to make it the way we hear it naturally. Because I don't like listening to things that are synthetic. It's almost like you're putting on headphones with a filter on it. And I wanted to remove that filter so that whatever I'm listening to, whether it be in a live environment or whether it be in a recorded environment, that I want to hear it the way I would hear it naturally if I was to be there. And to record higher quality natural audio, that was the objective. To create a truly lossless, high quality audio. And that was one of the main objectives. And I think a main objective for all sound engineers is they always want to strive to produce better sound. So that was the reason I wanted to harness this once I discovered it, is because it gave the opportunity and the ability to produce clear audio, because now you're able to create a dimension of sound, and with that dimension of sound, you can kind of spread out that sound so that the sound pressure of each of those inputs does not get compacted and compressed like a high pressure water hose, and it causes noise. So that's one of the high benefits of it. And I came across a lot of other benefits. Like, one is that you're able to capture the audio of an entire environment and not have any loss of audio quality. So you don't need to go around handing microphones to a whole bunch of people. And you're able to record 100 people and be able to hear 100 people clearly in like a meeting room with a dialogue. So there are so many benefits to it, where in the past, the traditional route, you would have to go and hand a microphone to everyone to be able to get their audio into the recording. So with dimensional audio, because it cleans up the audio, you're going to have clear audio without loss of audio quality, without any distortion of that audio. So that was the whole objective, and I just wanted to briefly add this in and share it with you before I touch in on the next things.